Hi everyone, and welcome to I10 Healthcare Solutions webinar. Online reputation is everything, even for your practice. My name is Chelsea Grover, and I'm the Marketing Communications Coordinator for I10. And let me just say, I'm super excited about today's webinar today. Maybe that's because I'm in marketing, but I do think that this is a really important subject matter topic to be covering today. Before we get into it, I want to take a moment to explain the process for today's presentation. First, I'd like to mention that this webinar will be recorded. We'll send out a copy of the slides along with the recording within the next week. Next, for those of you who aren't familiar with I10, I wanted to share a bit of who we are with you. We specialize specifically in next-gen healthcare, and we are passionate about providing solutions for our healthcare provider partners, which in turn help them to improve patient care, enhance the patient experience, and maintain a financially healthy practice. To sum it up, we do everything next-gen, and we also have some next-gen add-on products for next-gen, ChartGuard, and Refund Manager. Next, I'm excited to announce that we'll be at NextGen UGM again this year. We are a Diamond sponsor, we'll be exhibiting in the expo hall, and we'll be bringing our whole management team and many of our consultants as well. Plan on swinging by our booth or shoot me an email in the next few weeks if you'd like to grab a drink, and we'll block some time to chat with one of us on site. As a reminder, UGM is in Orlando this year from November 10th through the 13th. Next, I wanted to mention an upcoming webinar in November on understanding the bad debt process from start to finish. And we've scheduled another one for December on how to make your next-gen workflow more efficient with defaults and favorites. We'll send out more information and invitations as we get closer to them, so keep your eyes out for emails from us. Okay, so back to today's webinar on managing your practice's online reputation. At the end of the presentation, we'll open the floor up to questions from you. We'll answer all the questions at the end, but you may type them in the questions area of the webinar control panel whenever they occur to you. And finally, for audio clarity purposes, everyone's phone will remain muted throughout the entire webinar. If you experience audio issues, please use the chat box to let us know so we can resolve them. And again, questions may be entered in the questions box. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce our presenters for today. Lindsay Lanning is Manager of Client Development, and Carly Hogan is Client Solutions Administrator at I10 Healthcare Solutions. Cindy Kincaid, Vice President, will also be on at the end to assist with questions. So Lindsay, the webinar is all yours. Feel free to get started when you're ready.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Chelsea, and hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar on online reputation is everything, even for your practice. As a healthcare provider in a world today so enthralled in a combination of both digital resources and consumerism, it is imperative you are aware of your virtual presence and know how to effectively manage your online reputation. So today we're going to take you through examples for not only common healthcare sites as Position Compare and Health Grades, but also LinkedIn and other social outlets of best practices. We want to provide you with the tools you need to strengthen your online presence, as well as provide those best practices for online reputation management when it comes to putting a system in place at your practice and dealing with the inevitable, a negative online review. So we want to get an idea of what our audience is currently using in practices today. Let's get a clear picture of what tools and outlets are actually in use. So instead of raising your hands if we were in person, we are going to go ahead and launch a poll and encourage each of you to answer, honestly, of course. So the first question is, does your practice currently utilize and keep up to date any of the following? Feel free to check all that apply. A practice website, your provider's LinkedIn pages, a practice LinkedIn page, and or a practice blog. It should be going live now. And when you're answering this, I want to emphasize the words keep up to date, meaning your current information is available. It's not something that hasn't been touched or updated in 3 years. So think your practice website. Are your current hours and current positions listed? Are your services provided up to date? Have you included any recent news articles or links? Same with your LinkedIn. Does it have an up-to-date photo, or is it from years ago? Have you posted or shared or even logged in recently? And what about a blog? Do you have a post from at least the last 6 months on current topics? So we'll keep this open for a little bit, one more minute or so. All right, Chelsea, I think we're good to close the poll out. And we should see the poll results coming through here. So interesting percentages. We have 100% practice website. Not going to lie, kind of expected that. That's become kind of that new norm that's accepted. 36% have a practice LinkedIn. And this is actually surprising. I wasn't sure kind of how many of you actually created a page for your practice. And then 18% for both provider LinkedIn and 18% for practice blog. Those are great numbers. They're a little bit lower, but it's kind of what we expected. I truly almost thought it would be a 0% for a practice blog. So this is exciting. Now, one more poll that we will look at before we kind of jump in here. The next question is just a simple yes or no. Does your practice have a strategy in place to actively monitor physician reviews for your practice? It can be on any website, any outlet, but do you have a resource whose responsibility is it to monitor this for your practice and clinicians? They could have many other roles and responsibilities. We're used to that. But do you have someone designated to perform this function on a routine basis? Now, I would expect the majority of you to possibly say no, but let's go ahead and look at the results. We'll leave it open here for just a few more minutes. Go ahead and give you just a few more seconds here, type in your answers, and we'll share the responses. So we can go ahead and share those responses now. It looks like everyone's voted, and I'm actually pleasantly surprised with this. 58% of you said yes, you do have someone assigned to this function, and 42% said no. I truly was expecting the majority to say no, just because this is a relatively new area for medical practices. Although I'm not surprised by the yeses, because it has become extremely apparent that this is necessary in the healthcare industry today. And that's great. You are already ahead of the game, but there truly is so much more that can be done. And this is kind of the primary example of why we wanted to have this webinar, to elevate this conversation and make sure practices are aware of the increasing importance of online reputation management has and is having on the healthcare industry today. So thank you all for your participation. I know you're probably just trying to eat your lunches or work your way through here, but your honest answers really help us gauge where you guys are at as well. So let's jump in and start kind of muddling through these murky waters of virtual presence and online reviews and their impact on your practice. Perfect. So now I'm well aware this may be, like I said, the first time or even a relatively new topic of online reputation management. So just to prove it's real, I included our very trusted resource, Wikipedia. So the Wikipedia definition that we see right now is reputation management refers to the influencing and controlling of an individual's or group's reputation. Originally, it was a public relations term, but the growth of the internet and social media, along with reputation management companies, have made search results a core part of an individual or group's reputation. And online reputation management focuses on the management of product and service search results within the digital space. So what does this mean? Well, to put it bluntly, your online reputation is your image on the internet. Online reputation management, or I'm going to refer to it sometimes as ORM, is about improving or restoring your name or your practice's good standing. It's the process of controlling what shows up when someone Googles your name or your practice's name, and it's how to promote positive content to the top of your search results. So what plays in your online reputation? Well, the simple answer, anything and everything that's out there on the web. Remember, the internet never forgets. Your online reputation is composed of things we expect, like your practice website, publications, press releases, or articles mentioning your providers or your practice, but also less obvious things like your social media accounts, such as LinkedIn or Twitter, physician reviews, any mentions in online forums, blog posts, and really any and all of these things contribute to your search engine results, and they all connect to form your online reputation. So if you are shaking your head saying, I am not mentioning any of these things, we have a practice website and even a practice LinkedIn page, and that's it. I don't have an online reputation. You people are nuts, and I'm not going to lie, you seem a little paranoid. Well, Wrong. I promise. If you search your practice or providers, so much more would show up than you expect. If you still don't believe me or you think that this doesn't apply to the healthcare sector, a recent Google study of 20 different medical and dental practices found the following. 77% of patients use search engines before booking an appointment. 83% of patients browsed practice websites to learn more before booking. 50% of patients used health information sites to research various practices, and 26% of patients relied on consumer-generated reviews to influence their decision. These numbers cannot be ignored. Patients are adapting and taking on characteristics of a consumer more and more in the healthcare arena. And it's true, today's patient population really is dominated by healthcare consumers who want to make informed decisions based off digital resources readily available to them. I mean, if we think about it as customers, we rarely buy products without first reading customer reviews on the product website, my favorite, Amazon, or other websites such as Yelp, and even various social outlets. Why would healthcare be any different? We're really at this point of dealing with a generation of what I call digital wayfinders. They prefer to be well-informed and equipped with the knowledge needed to avoid a negative experience and waste their time and their money. So realistically, patients prefer to see providers they can find online reviews about. So why is this so important? Why do we decide to even host a webinar on it? We usually are focused on next gen or making your practice perform more efficiently and better. So why was this so important to us? Well, to sum it up nicely in just 3 bullets, number 1, your prospective patients are online. Number 2, your current patients are online. And number 3, your competitors are online. If you do not control brand online, things about you and it's being talked about. Joseph Gordon-Levitt actually said recently, "Me be one way." Everyone else in the world just had to listen. Now the internet is allowing what used to be a monologue to become a dialogue. And it's true, the internet changed everything. And all those perspectives were becoming health practices revenue anywhere from 32% to 52%. It's literally in our mission statement at I10. It says we provide solutions for healthcare provider partners, help them improve patient care, enhance the patient experience, and help maintain financially healthy practice. We're seeing the release of the final inpatient prospective payment system, the outpatient prospective payment system, those IPPS and OPPS final rules. Reimbursement rates are not keeping up with inflation. And it's areas like this, online reviews and value-based care incentive programs, that are becoming increasingly important to maintain a financially healthy practice and survive right now. Right now, online reviews and rating sites have the highest public visibility and provider reputation. At least 1 in 3 prospective patients who online sought out or avoided physicians based on those ratings. Patients aren't just looking for reviews out there in cyberspace, they are contributing their own thoughts and experiences as well. Recently, in the Journal of the American Medical Association, they retail-like expectations that buyers are real, that patients are increasingly turning to online physician ratings just as they have sought other products and services. Now, this trend factor, obviously increasing digital connectivity, heightened demand from consumers, many of whom, if we're thinking about it, shouldering higher and higher portions of healthcare spending. So they're seeking out the best care at the most affordable price. Government programs that emphasize patient feedback when awarding payments and bonuses to healthcare providers, increased emphasis on online reviews from healthcare practitioners themselves. Some health centers are even providing incentives for online patient ratings, and doctors are becoming more and more likely to read their own ratings. These are the numeric ratings or star ratings that are assigned to a variety of factors influencing patients. That going to be the overall rating, physician, bed of scheduling as well. About this room in your those first active a professional reputation and our guidepost for the provider selection process. So the bottom line is that more than ever, physician rating significantly influence the patient. Our reality, like there be patients with increasing frequency. Your practice will have a better chance of faring well online if you monitor online reviews and do what you can to ensure sites portray accurate information. How? Well, you should absolutely know what's being ranked. So by understanding what patients are most likely to prioritize when they're reading reviews, you can work to ensure that those elements of your practice are up to snuff. So one study value quality above all else. But five score over things like demo pictures of your doctor, your office, accurate weight. The doctor's listening skills is a big comes up recently. They're all sought after. Keeping your material fresh and engaging. Some of the physician rating review sites, you can compile a list for your practice. A 2011 study of online physician rating sites identified these top 10. While it is a few years ago, I still think it's accurate here. Looking at the big ones, Healthgrades, Yelp, Vitals.com, RateMD, ZocDoc. These are big names that we're used to hearing. And then last but not least, search engine results. Use a variety of keywords and search with Google. Look at Bing or Yahoo search and any others you can think of to find your practice and pay particular attention to what is or what isn't coming up. So one of the biggest forms of online presence that I think clinicians in medical practice have accepted, which obviously on this call we showed 100% for having practice website, is the number providing. How is your online reputation? Asking. It's much, but your website still does play a key role. So what should practice website have? Take this list, audit your own website, and see what you come up with. So number one is a clear value proposition in your headline. Your value proposition is text on your site's homepage. In a sentence or less, it should sum up exactly what and type of care you offer to your patients. Really, on the internet, you only have to make a good one click away from exiting that out. So your value statement needs to be basically immediately tell your potential patients what they found. So what does this look like in the real world? Think something simple, all your dental needs under one roof. Again, it's only a few words, the biggest text on your website. Number two, contact information or opening hours. Your practice website needs to make it easy as possible for your visitors to actually get to your office for a visit. How to do that is make it impossible for your visitors to miss your contact information and opening hours. Don't hide this information away on your Contact Us page. Put it front and center on every single page of your website. I'm sure you have a header that stays the same across all pages. Put it in that upper right-hand corner where they can see it at all times. Number three, appointment booking forms. If you want to make it even easier for your potential patients to book an appointment, consider adding a booking appointment form that lets your patients actually book an appointment without needing to call. This is becoming extremely popular with practices, especially through the patient portal. Responsive design. So this is a big one that I don't think a lot of people are aware of. Responsive design is a web design technique that ensures websites look just as great on a mobile device as it does on a desktop computer. So given that the majority of internet usage is actually happening on mobile devices nowadays, thanks to millennials like myself, you can't afford for your medical practice and your medical website to only work on a desktop computer. If your practice site isn't responsive, you're making it difficult for your patients to get the information that they need. Number 5, the medical areas you specialize in. While this may seem pretty obvious, it's often forgotten about. If patients are dealing with a specific issue, they want someone who practices in that specific area that they need help with. It makes sense. That's why it's essential that your practice, that site, showcases your areas. For example, make sure you showcase your specialties and even allow patients to click on those specialties to learn more. The credentials of your practitioners. We know if you need medical help, it can be a scary situation. So you want to do everything possible to give that website traffic confidence in your care. One of the best ways to do this is to list your credentials so that people trust you that you can make them healthy again. So for example, a lot of practices do this. You can provide photos and brief biographies and credentials for all of your doctors and clinical staff on your website. Next is a patient resources section. So while a large part of your practice website should be focused on attracting and gaining new patients, you also need to provide value for existing patients. So think of including things like basic appointment procedures, any patient forms you can download, as well as instructions, and then maybe accepted health insurances. Next, patient testimonials for social proof. Patient testimonials are one of the biggest features you can add to boost your potential patient's confidence in your care. So depending on how much you want to highlight your patient testimonials, you can either include them on your homepage, a dedicated testimonials page, or both. You can even opt to include some testimonials on a page and then link it to your LinkedIn, to your Facebook, or maybe Google reviews, and that provides even further authenticity. And then urgent care information. Now, this is pretty straightforward, but you should have it. Sometimes it might just be as simple as directing them to go to their local emergency room. And then lastly, a blog or news page. I was surprised that we had 18% say they had a blog. That is great. That is awesome to hear. And to realize that blogs aren't just for fun. They provide a very useful way for you to establish credibility by authoring blog posts on medical issues. It allows you to keep patients up to date with your practice or events and even reach potential patients in search engines like Google or Yahoo, even better. So while maintaining a blog does take some time and effort, it will pay dividends in terms of increased authority and visibility. So try and put a serious effort into making your blog a useful place for your patients. Looking even closer at reviews, other review sites are important, but I would start with Google first, then follow up with the healthcare-specific review sites. We know that Google's paid search produces excellent results for medical healthcare clinics. This means your clinic's reputation on Google search is the single most important strategy you should implement. Within Google search results, one of the most powerful visual aspects is the number of Google reviews in that search results. So you can see we pointed the green arrows here. You can see just the sheer number of reviews and then the star rating. We've all seen this page before because we've all Googled businesses or organizations we were looking at using. Same idea for healthcare now. There are other sites we mentioned before, kind of pulled out the big ones here of Healthgrades, Vitals.com, ZocDoc, RateMDs, and then Yelp. Yelp in particular is a present-day digital version of what I want to call friends and family recommendations. It's those old word-of-mouth recommendations that we're used to, the ones that we trust. And it's now closely ranked under Google for recommendations. So these two are the big ones. But you also have actual healthcare review sites, such as Position Compare, which is ran and updated by CMS. It's real, and it includes information about quality reporting under MIPS or the APM track of QPP. This is live. Your patients can view this right now. You can also see patient survey scores and many other metrics to compare physicians on just from this website. But that's not all. So CMS recently now provides official data sets for Medicare.gov Position Compare website. That means anyone can download this completed data set for the topics you see listed. So you can see 2017 MIPS overall performance, patient experience, etc., and incorporate them into their own review sites as well. CMS is going for complete transparency. So that means health grades, ZocDoc, Vitals, RateMD, etc. They can all now access this data, and I'm sure they're going to make it even more widely available. So what are the 2 facts every practice must accept today? What are 2 truths you need to walk away from this presentation with? They are fact 1, everyone has an online reputation. Every healthcare provider has an online reputation to maintain and protect. Your online reputation is an extension of your medical practice. In order to understand what you need to focus on, you need to know what's being said online. Put your name in the major search engines and see what comes up. Is the information that you find about your practice accurate? Is it useful? Fact number 2, practices must be proactive, not reactive. It is essential to own your reputation and do not allow it to own you. Best way to put this, a spark is way easier to manage than a firestorm. It's much easier and safer to be proactive than reactive when handling matters that concern your online reputation. You need to effectively communicate with your team and those involved with your practice's brand image. The saying goes, the best defense is a good offense, and that 100% applies here. So let's take a look at some very specific strategies to manage your online reputation or image that you can implement at your practice starting today if you wanted to. After all, we're well aware your online presence is the new pathway to your front door, and your reputation begins with what the internet communicates. I can't stress this enough. Back in the digital dark ages, probably about a decade or so, simply having a website was enough to be found online, and that's where a lot of practices have stopped. Really early on, only a few healthcare practices had a website at all. And within that website, maybe 2 or 3 HTML pages. And that put your online presence miles ahead of most people. But that's not the case today. To be found online today and not lost in the crowd or pages and pages of Google searches, you need a heck of a lot more than a single blip on that search radar. You need to create a collective presence using several tools that work together. Typically, this is going to include 1 or more websites, those blogs, those social media platforms like Twitter and LinkedIn, as well as online directory listings, digital advertising, YouTube channels we've seen more and more of, and e-newsletters. Now, I get it with that kind of laundry list of tools. We have to accept the reality that a strong presence is built over time, not overnight, but there's no reason not to start today. So step 1. Search for yourself online. First step to manage your online reputation is monitoring it. Google your name, your physician's name, your practice's name weekly. Search for those same names on Yelp, HealthGrades, and other physician rating sites. Figure out what is already out there. The results could prove pretty surprising. They might include a combination of negative reviews, maybe misinformation, and what we're hoping for, positive feedback. But you never know until you look. And you can't manage what you aren't aware of. Step 2, use what you find to your advantage. Track where patients are finding reviews and recommendations. Apply your resources where they will have the greatest impact. Big name sites are big and important for a reason. Keep score. So identify where search results for your practice are strongest. What sites are the most influential or influence your search engine optimization? Be your own good resource. Your personnel and practice reputation really is influenced by content that you create and that information that you're posting. So use your Facebook page, your blog, and other social media tools to tell your own professional story. Step 3, use social media to help build your brand. Social media is not a bad thing. It can be if it's used incorrectly, but it really is a tool you can use to help create your brand. And in the digital age, branding applies to people, not just big corporate companies or products anymore. Creating a brand image that successfully demonstrates your potential value to patients, it's not easy, and it's often overlooked by practice managers or by your clinicians. But once your branding message is clear, use social media to help build it. You can maintain those blogs and discuss different expertise in specific areas. Your practice LinkedIn account can showcase your provider's extensive education, their training, and awards. Or even a YouTube channel can provide videos about your practice. Bottom line, an active but also diverse social media presence can help you differentiate yourself to prospective patients. So let's focus on one form of social media most of you, or at least 18% of you on today's call, are actively using, and I appreciate those of you who used the honesty of when this was last updated. The first impression of a LinkedIn profile usually comes from three main features: your photo, your headline, and your summary or about section. If a patient is searching for your providers and these three items aren't current, it will not look good. Your photo, number one, should be there. No one gets sketched out or nervous more than when you see that gray outline of a human clip art person. So make sure you have a photo, but also make sure that it's a professional headshot and not a selfie or a photo where you've clearly cropped someone else out. Your headline should include your credentials, and your about section should tell the patient exactly what you want them to know about you. You are trying to establish professionalism and trust, and these three things are what you focus on first. LinkedIn also has a feature to show your profile's viewing statistics, completely free on the normal LinkedIn version. So on your profile, under the summary section, you can find this dashboard, which details how many people have viewed your profile and how many times you've appeared in searches. This can help you determine if you need to rewrite your about section to include more keywords to show up in these searches. You also need to provide social proof. So I mentioned this once a few slides ago, but basically, people are hardwired to follow the actions of others. Nowadays, patients want to base their decisions on more dynamic forms of social proof. So the more evidence you can show patients about your talent and expertise, the more likely they are to select you as their physician. So online social proof can range from positive reviews to maybe the number of followers a practice has, maybe the number of connections that you have on your practice or provider LinkedIn profile, maybe the number of likes on your practice Facebook page or Twitter. If your website provides links to other websites with positive reviews and a positive social presence, this can also help generate social proof. Almost all review websites actually offer a way to connect a practice's website to their own, a link that says something like "read our reviews here," that can direct patients to positive testimonials published on that review platform's website. Really, this concept is basically about proving to the patient you're an active user online and establishing that trust before you even know their name. They are vetting you to see how legit you are, and social proof is their #1 criteria. So a great example that I think applies to everyone here, especially we had a lot of people saying they had that LinkedIn, of establishing social proof, is to share things. Not sure what to share, I understand that, but if you have your own blog, like some of you said, start with sharing a link to that post or any current articles. And if you don't have a blog, you don't have any of these things, I'm sure you get current articles or industry topics sent to your email inbox daily. Share one of those that relates to you or you found interesting. Or maybe your practice was in the news, preferably for a good reason. Share that article, or even just any publications by your providers. Anything that establishes you as an expert and shows you care about what's going on in the industry is going to be useful to share. And again, kind of provided those steps on how to share. You can reshare, your providers can reshare a post that you post on your practice LinkedIn as well, just by clicking share, sharing a post, and sending that off. Step 4, request patient feedback. Actively encourage and seek out patient reviews. Ask patients to use the prominent rating and review sites. Positive patient experiences typically inspire thoughtful and positive comments. And don't be modest about asking for testimonials. It really is, it's easy enough to do. It's just many providers neglect the simple action and that simple step of asking. So make it a habit to ask for honest reviews from all of your patients. You can do this by posting signs in your waiting room saying that you value feedback. Email patients to ask their opinion and link where you want them to leave that opinion. You can hand out cards with instructions on how to leave a review. Don't not ask because you're afraid of getting a bad review. We're going to go over how to handle bad reviews, and you may find that patients, like other consumers, actually trust ratings more when they see both good and bad. So although it may be kind of tempting here to ask all of your really loyal patients to write those 5-star reviews, the people that your providers have been seeing for years and years, that's rarely a successful tactic. Really, physicians who ask a loyal patient to write a great review for them on one of those popular review websites will probably notice a week or so later that their 5-star review appears to have vanished. That's because most review websites have filters in place to identify solicited reviews. Now, I'm not saying if you have a great patient and they go home and do that it'll be taken down. What I'm saying is that these websites use algorithms to identify patterns. So if you have multiple reviews coming from the same computer, so let's say you had a computer in your waiting room and you were having patients do that, they'll be able to identify that. Or if patients are using similar language that you clearly provided them, kind of a template of how to leave a review, they can spot those out as well. And then step 5, install a system to digitally monitor your online persona. It seems like a few of you have this in place right now, and at least we're working towards this. So you need to systematically monitor online reviews. The search process gives weight to online reviews, those big ones we mentioned, ZocDoc, Yelp, Health Grades. Install a regular routine in your practice that monitors the popular sites and responds to comments. We've seen success when practices assign the monitoring as a regular staff responsibility to routinely check your listing on review and comment sites. You could also install what are called Google Alerts or any social mentions or any other kind of pulse checker software that can give you notifications and alerts for someone to monitor those as well. And then what a lot of people and a lot of practices have missed out on is making sure that you're sharing this initiative with your team. Your whole office should know, any office staff, clinical staff, everyone should be aware that you're doing this. Tell your team when you get a good review and encourage them to deliver care by always keeping that healthcare brand and mission in mind. A positive review will go a long way of boosting kind of team morale, so make sure to share that with them. Now, we do need to be realistic. I know there's a fear associated with these reviews of negative comments and backlash, but it is critical for physicians to establish and maintain a positive online reputation, which involves more than just operating that website, that user-friendly practice website. So as Warren Buffett once said, it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. And we know the fear of negative review is real and it can be detrimental. So we want to make sure you're prepared to handle them correctly without getting yourself into trouble. So let's look at the inevitable downside of asking for online reviews. The fact that online allows the user to stay anonymous not only prevents the verification of the reviewer, but it can also lead to things being said that most likely wouldn't be said in person. We all know once we get behind a computer screen, it's a lot easier to say things when you're protected, again, by that computer screen versus an in-person, face-to-face review. Not only that, information online can be outdated or inaccurate. For example, something easy, that provider left. Not only that, patients may complain about factors beyond the physician's control. Maybe they're upset about parking because a new restaurant opened up next door and they couldn't find their usual parking spot. Not much we can do about that. It's things like this that make it difficult to determine whether patient experiences actually reflect a given provider's skill level. But physicians who are actively trying to work on their ORM may try to avoid caring for patients who are likely to leave bad reviews. We all know those people who always have something to complain about. Do we really want to ask them to give a review when they never seem happy no matter what? Do we really want to hand them with their checkout papers one of those cards with those instructions? Yes, And last, but certainly not least, providers can get into serious trouble from responding to reviews in a way that would breach HIPAA. Now, despite these very real concerns, online reviews really are a positive tool to use at your practice. It's just about knowing how to manage and mitigate these risks or downsides. So let's go ahead and just quickly start here with the one that I think is most concerning, violating HIPAA. Almost all review websites allow individuals to respond to their online reviews. However, providers must do so carefully to avoid violating HIPAA regulations. So, although patients can write freely about their visit, they can say whatever they want to. Physicians cannot do the same. Providers cannot reference a specific, identifiable, or individual patient. Even acknowledging that someone is a patient or was a patient would be inappropriate. You cannot even acknowledge that they were a patient if you respond to a review. So, looks like we had some jumping ahead here. So on top of that, so what we're looking at, a useful strategy for physicians is truly to simply and politely acknowledge that review. This is going to help mitigate the negative effect of a review in which a patient vents about an unhappy experience. So a great response and a kind of simple here would be, sorry to hear that your experience did not meet your expectations. Please contact our office manager if you would like to discuss further. This type of response can open up communication with the patient who wrote the review while letting others know that the physician is interested in hearing feedback and improving customer satisfaction. And most importantly, not breaching HIPAA. Believe me, I know it can be very tempting to use specific he said, she said replies to internet posted comments, especially negative comments. But I can't stress this enough, a provider's reply must avoid reference to a specific, identifiable, or individual patient. Even acknowledging that someone is a patient would be inappropriate. Now, if you don't think these are being watched, or maybe patients wouldn't know this is a breach of HIPAA, take a look at this example. So in 2016, the Washington Post actually conducted an investigation into 3,000 plus physician responses to negative reviews on Yelp and Google, which showed that an alarming number of doctors violated the HIPAA compliance rules when responding to upset patients. The patients complained to the Office for Civil Rights within the U.S. Department of HHS, which enforces HIPAA, and this office has actually issued warnings and even opened investigations on these practices. So some examples of actual Yelp responses given by providers in response to negative reviews are shown here. In California, there's a chiropractor. He pushed back against a mother's claims that he misdiagnosed her daughter with scoliosis. So he actually posted, "You brought your daughter in for the exam in early March 2014. The exam identified one or more of signs that I mentioned above for scoliosis. I absolutely recommended an x-ray to determine if this condition existed. This x-ray was at no additional cost to you." Then we have another one. One Washington state dentist turned the tables on a patient who blamed him for the loss of a molar. He said, "Due to your clenching and grinding habit, this is not the first molar tooth you've lost due to a fractured root. This tooth is no different." Now, some of you may be laughing or sitting with your mouth gaping open like I was, that these were actual responses posted online by a clinician. And I get it, it may seem absurd to us right now, but in the heat of the moment, as a clinician who believes they're in the right and they're being persecuted online, it's very easy to fall trap to these types of responses. Even just by acknowledging that these people were patients is breaching HIPAA, let alone providing this much identifiable and specific details, timeframes, past medical conditions, diagnoses, etc. So let's look at exactly how we should handle negative review and avoid OCR investigations. Because we know even the best practices are going to draw an occasional not so flattering review. So while the majority of comments we expect to be positive, the real opportunity to improve and exceed is actually to address patient concerns. So some things you want to keep in mind for how to handle negative reviews are, number one, operate your comment radar relentlessly. I think I've said it before, but I'll say it again. The single most destructive force in reputation management is neglect. If you don't know what's being written, you can't take action. Most likely you're going to find more good stuff than negative, but it's important to track and respond to both. Number 2, read and accept comments for understanding. An issue that is real and important to the patient's experience is at the heart of a less than positive feedback. Learn from what they're saying. Try not to be emotional, defensive, or dismissive. Number 3, act fast, and I mean really fast. Seemingly minor concerns can fester and sour very quickly. A delay in providing an answer suggests that nobody cares about the patient or the issue, which can make matters much worse. What's more, negative reviews can inspire other negative reviews. So prompt answers or actions demonstrate concern for that relationship to other people as well. Number 4, be constructive, not defensive. So a negative issue or comment is significant to that patient. They're expressing their feelings with the expectation of a reply, an apology, some sort of remedy or solution, or at the very least, an acknowledgement of their concern. Take the high road with that response. Make sure it's positive, helpful, and caring. Preserve the person-to-person relationship. Extend an honest, positive, genuine response from one person to another. So right here, we're going to avoid issuing that generic or template-sounding reply. Instead, sound real and acknowledge their feelings. It's the worst when you read the reviews and you see it looks like someone copied and pasted answers to every negative review. We don't want that. Number 6, observe HIPAA guidelines and patient privacy. Speaking to a particular issue can be a delicate challenge. We know that, as to not reveal that a person is or isn't a patient. You can, however, speak in general terms and reference office policies or procedures, express a positive desire to communicate, and offer to work offline or privately on a further resolution. Number 7, present an answer or resolution. When you're clear about the issue, be prepared to actually fix the problem. And then as well, be mindful of the privacy details when you do that, but whenever possible, if you can share publicly to demonstrate that that issue has been answered or resolved, that will help with your other reviews. And then lastly, number 8, inspire and encourage positive reviews. Again, the majority of reviews really are going to be positive and supportive, and it's that kind of online endorsement, that digital word of mouth that builds recognition, that facilitates referrals and positive professional reputation. So all in all, demonstrate concern, quickly respond and embrace the issue, and be caring and anxious to resolve that concern. If you keep these things in mind, a negative review won't hurt your practice, it'll actually help it. And one last example of how not to handle a negative review besides avoiding a HIPAA breach is to not seek legal action against a reviewer. So again, another example here, in 2016, a Manhattan dentist actually sued multiple Yelp reviewers for their negative reviews, a move that backfired hugely. The New York Daily News began its coverage with some very unflattering headlines. One read, "A Manhattan dentist has been trying to extract money from patients who gave him bad reviews online." The case caught the attention of the national media, and as you can imagine, this spiraled. Worse yet, the case caught the attention of senior executives at Yelp. 3 years later, potential patients going to the dentist's Yelp page now see this warning message pop up. Consumer alert, questionable legal threats. This business may be trying to abuse the legal system in an effort to stifle free speech. I'm sorry, I do not think I will be getting my teeth cleaned here if I see that. Now, while this is worst case scenario, yes, but it's normal. According to the senior director of litigation at Yelp, the company regularly receives subpoenas from legal counsel retained by providers to fix their reputation. Secrets out, Yelp rarely acts on these aggressive legal tactics, and they won't remove customer feedback. So don't even go down that rabbit hole. Lesson learned here, even though negative coverage never goes away, the worst thing a doctor can do is fight fire with fire. And Jeffrey Segal, a one-time critic of review sites, really did say it best. For doctors who get bent out of shape to get rid of negative reviews, it's a denominator problem. If they only have 3 reviews and 2 are negative, the denominator is the problem. If you can figure out a way to cultivate reviews from hundreds of patients rather than just a few, the problem is solved. So our lessons learned for online reviews include the following here. As we gathered from our last slide, although you can't delete negative coverage, you can vary it with positive content. Again, encourage more, not fewer reviews. The patients most motivated to leave an online review tend to be those with both the best and worst stories to tell. So try and balance those more polarizing reviews by encouraging all patients to leave reviews. Prioritize privacy. As always, be sure to follow privacy regulations, aka HIPAA, if you're interacting with patients online. Handle negative comments positively. The saying, "You'll catch more flies with honey," remains true here. The best option is to invite the patient to have an offline conversation about how to improve his or her experience going forward. But also use those negative comments to better your practice. These are an opportunity to learn about areas in your practice that could improve. Also, realize it doesn't happen overnight. And believe me, I know it's much easier said than done. And then lastly, which I realize I don't even have up there, is don't worry too much. Despite the anxiety among medical professionals that online reviews are going to tarnish their reputations, we know that online reviews are, for the most part, overwhelmingly positive. And it's also comforting to know word-of-mouth recommendations from friends and family still exist, and they likely outrank these online reviews. So don't stress too much on this, but just be aware. So to wrap things up today, we're going to look at the official strategies specific to healthcare practices' online reputation. These are actually taken directly from digital authority partners. This company, Digital Authority Partners, specializes as a digital partner to companies, including healthcare practices. They act as an expert in online reputation management. So we found a really great article that went over techniques for doctors, specifically on how to handle online reputation management. So I'm actually going to let Carly just take you through our top 5 quickly here with infographics. So Carly, it is all yours.
Thanks, Lindsay. Okay, so we will go ahead and jump right into building a website for yourself or your practice. The first and most valuable strategy to repairing your reputation is to create a website dedicated to yourself and or your practice. And in some cases, you may want to consider doing both. So a website really serves multiple purposes. First, it introduces you to the world as a physician. A good physician-dedicated website tells the story of a specific doctor, the values to which he or she adheres, and provides testimonies about the quality of service the physician provides. And if done right, your website will be found immediately when patients look up your name. That's very powerful. So even if a patient finds some negative reviews, making a great impression is really imperative through your website. Second, in online doctor reputation management, it's best to have a website that clearly presents all the critical information about yourself that you want emphasized. Your website's really a building block. It's a central place that will be used for all aspects tied to your reputation management. And third, a personal website is really your own forum. It's where you can share updates about your practice, showcase your leadership, and engage with your patients. And on our next slide, you may also want to consider starting a blog directed at your patients. So I know this could sound like a really daunting task. You know, how often would you even want to publish on a blog? Would you have time to regularly do it? And is it really worth it? Remember that a blog lives on the internet forever, but more importantly, it allows you to speak to your patients, current and future, to show your expertise and the value that you bring to your patients. A physician blog, preferably on your website, nearly guarantees that your content appears at the top of the Google search results. This is why most reputation management companies make the creation of new and original blog content the #1 technique to bury negative reviews or negative results in Google. So creating powerful social media accounts for your practice is also crucial. It's well established that social media activity has an impact on Google search results. Specifically, results are drawn by the number of visits specific websites and blog posts receive directly from social media like Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. This strong correlation between your Google search results and social media activities is what drives most successful reputation management campaigns for doctors to include a social media component. And creating robust social media profiles combined with frequent posts has proven to be a very effective reputation management technique. Now, another really important and simple step for you to do is to claim your Google business listing online. And you can see in the example that Lindsay has on the screen that when you search this provider's name, Google search results will immediately return her image, her Google Map location, her specialty, address, and phone number, making her immediately look credible and easy for patients to find her. Now we're kind of going to hit quickly on a bit of a tricky subject, and that is, as Lindsay talked about earlier, responding to your reviews online. So when you're looking for a new service provider, maybe it's for your cable or a new restaurant, you're immediately going to look at reviews on places like Google and Yelp. And again, it's the same when patients are looking for a new doctor or provider. In general, you don't want to take it upon yourself to respond to reviews online because it is impossible to not feel some emotional connection when dealing with negative comments. Instead, you either want to designate a staff member to do this task or outsource your responses to a reputation management consultant. This approach will often avoid making a situation worse or drawing more unwanted attention. And then if you want to go ahead and jump to the next slide, Lindsay. So in general, the appropriate course of action for doctors dealing with online reviews is to respond to every single new review, whether it's positive or negative. This shows to patients who are maybe Googling you or researching you that you listen to your patients' concerns and you address them professionally. But don't forget, you can't make everyone happy, but you can treat everyone with respect and courtesy, especially when everyone in the world can see your online interactions. And now just some quick tips to review overall. So as a provider, you never want to respond to positive or negative comments as it could be a compliance issue. You want to have a triaging system in place for reviews with someone regularly checking them. Have a policy in place for how your office staff should respond to reviews, whether they're good or bad. Don't be afraid to use poor reviews as helpful feedback that could improve your practice. And be aware that online reviews exist and acknowledge they aren't going anywhere. So maintaining a positive digital image can be challenging, especially as social media and online review websites are really becoming formative players in the healthcare arena. However, if well managed and not ignored, reviews can spark improvement and lead to a more transparent provider-patient relationship. And that really fosters patient engagement and a positive patient experience. Because let's be honest, I think it's safe to say that a positive patient experience is the secret to obtaining a good review. In your online reputation, or your reputation really lives in two places, online and in person. You want to pay attention to both daily. Few things really have a higher priority for doctors. Concern for their professional reputation is hard-earned and constantly protected in their daily work. Physicians really don't need a reminder or assistance with the in-person part, but it's that online part, which often is out of sight, out of mind, that deserves equal concern and attention. So don't be a bystander when you can be an active participant in both. And finally, I know we're running out of time here, but I just want to challenge you. What would show up if you Googled your practice right now? So take the first step at managing your online reputation, and I will go ahead and turn it back over to Lindsay to close it out.
Perfect. Thank you, Carly. So if you are interested in managing your online reputation at your practice, or you're just feeling overwhelmed, because per usual, we dumped a ton of information on you over that last hour, let's look at next steps and how I10 can help. We can always assess your current situation or standing, provide those recommendations and best practices, and help implement new processes and procedures. You can always visit our website to learn more about us. Continue to sign up for these awesome free educational webinars. We've got some great topics coming. Consider some of our services we offer as well. It's the last part of the year here, so I will mention our MACRA MIPS assistance, as well as our on-site consultations for EHR, PM, and technology, as well as test drive our products Chelsea mentioned in the beginning. We have made it to questions. very narrowly with almost no time left, but I will turn it over to Chelsea to facilitate these. And please don't hesitate to ask. While we may not be the experts on online reputation, we do have a lot of experience with practices working on this and can do our best to help you.
Great, thank you so much, Lindsay. Okay, so as a reminder, you can type the questions in the questions area of the webinar control panel. We only have a couple, but we're going to go through them all. If you need to drop off the call, we totally understand, and thank you for joining us today. This first question we got asked towards the beginning, but I absolutely love it. I think that we covered it, but Lindsay, I'm going to ask it again because I think it's great. How do we get more reviews without being obnoxious? You know, like how do you ask patients for reviews?
That is a great question. And I completely understand, because these patients are coming to you. You don't want to have to straight up ask them and feel like you're bothering them with that. And we've seen a lot of success, again, with those flyers in the waiting room saying where patients can leave feedback. We've also seen success with, again, handing out those little cards. Maybe you have a pamphlet that you hand to patients on your practice, or maybe you have paperwork when they check out, or their patient portal information. Staple that little card on that piece of paper as well, letting them know where they can leave an online review. Have a link in the patient portal on anyone's homepage inviting them to leave a review. There are ways to go about it and do it in a way that wouldn't be obnoxious to patients, again, but I think the most straightforward way, if your providers are having some pushback to that, would be just putting up signs in your waiting room asking for reviews.
Great, thank you, Lindsay. Next question. So you're saying that if one of my providers responds to an online review and acknowledges that acknowledges them as a patient, and that could be breaking HIPAA?
I will take this one. Yes, as crazy as it sounds, it's not just by responding. We want you to be able to respond and facilitate that conversation. You can acknowledge that they had a poor experience and your practice truly just wants to improve upon that. It's when you acknowledge them saying, I know you were in on this date, or yes, I'm aware that you were a patient. When you even identify that they were a patient of yours, that's when you start breaching HIPAA, and any details after that as well. It could be that simple.
Okay, and it looks like this is our last question. We don't have anything in place at our practice at this time in regards to online review management. Where do you suggest we start?
This is a great question. And kind of piggybacking off Carly's last slide there, search yourself. Search your providers, search your practice name, and start there. See what's showing up. Is it accurate? Is it useful? Is your practice showing up at all? What is showing up? What sites are showing up? It's just out there and figuring out what's being said and what's out there on your practice and your providers, and then taking next steps from there and using that information.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Lindsay. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Really appreciate your time. Hope that this was helpful. If you have any further questions, you see Lindsay's and Carly's information up on the screen. Feel free to shoot either one of them an email, or you can always reply back to my email that I'll be sending out within the next week or so with a link to the recording and slides from this webinar. Basically, any way that you can get a hold of us, we're happy to help. We're glad that you took the time to join us today. We sincerely hope to see you at UGM. Again, if you're going to be there, shoot us a note to let us know. We'd love to set aside some time to meet up. Otherwise, have a great day, and thank you again for joining us.
Yeah, great. Thank you, everyone.